them to think and discover. It's just like our education system. Back in my day, you had to memorize. You prepared for departmentals, which were exams. Everybody wrote a common exam. We were not taught to think. And I think at the minor hockey level, kids think more today than you, Tammy, with kids younger. You might talk to that. Are they more informed? Do they have more information? Have they got more questions? Are they more open-minded to discovery? Are they discovering? In fact, are they learning, not memorizing? Does that make sense, Sammy?
Yeah, it does. It's interesting at the, I don't want to say that I'm totally beginner because some of my players have been playing for some years, and I do get some AA and AAA kids, but the kids that are sort of newish to the sport are, I think they're so used to such structure right away that when we do games of play, it takes a little bit longer to get them enthusiastic for it almost. But yeah, now you don't have to follow any structure. Now you can do that. And the struggle with trying to, it's interesting. Yeah, that I feel like they struggle a little bit with letting go of that rigidity that I think also might come from the classroom as well. Like you're kind of more, I don't know, there just isn't as much play as there was back in the day. Play in general, like going to the park and playing, and just going for riding your bike and all of those kind of things. So does that translate onto the hockey surface when I'm seeing them? Like, is that why they are not able to sort of embrace play as much? I've never really thought about it like you have, Wally, but it is a really good point that, yeah, I'm finding I'm having to explain play more. Like a simple game of treasure, you would think would be like a gym class kind of type thing. Capture the flag, treasure, capture the flag, would be something that would be just synonymous with kids, but maybe it's just a little bit different the way that's being taught in schools. I don't know. Jordan's here now. Maybe he can talk to that.
I guess the question is, and I'll ask you, Jordan, do kids play? He worked in elementary school. And do they really play? Like, do they make up their own games? And do they have fun? Find things to do that they enjoy that might or might not be competitive? I don't know. Jordan, are you on, or are you in and out of the office again?
Yeah, I'm actually here, Wally. I just hopped on after bus arrival and some of those things, and it's yeah, that's a loaded question. Do kids play? It's one of the interesting things is if you provide them the opportunity to, they will. What I was reaching for was this book. It's one that my staff has all read over this past summer, and it talks about the great rewiring of children's brains and how we're doing it voluntarily with the use of smartphones, and because whereas we would have been playing outside road hockey or all those sorts of things, just scrub ball or whatever, kids, what do they do now is they gravitate to the device, and so they sit and are well, many are addicted to it. We're in Alberta this year, they have had the legislation come in that we are to remove cell phones from classrooms where we see fit. It's that it was a real interesting legislation, but I won't go into that. How
where we see fit. Interesting.
Yeah, where educators see fit. That it was supposed to be a ban on personal devices in schools. under the discretion of educators. So it basically said, yeah, we agree that they're a distraction, shouldn't be there, but it's up to you to come up with the rule and enforce it. We're not going to do that. So, but where it comes into kind of rambling here a little bit is that play is one of those things that has gone a little bit away, partially because of smartphones and things like that, but also partially because adults have structured kids' time far more than ever before. That you look at it, and one of the things that this author was talking about in there is about getting away from so much structured time for kids, and that we structure every moment, that kids don't create their own games or play. And then the other piece is that we try and take out all risk. So needs to be some risk involved as well. And when we take away risky play at young ages, like, well, I think about what was a playground structure when I was a kid was a heck of a lot different than what we have now. And if you didn't get slivers or splinters at recess, then you weren't playing hard enough. But now everything is so safetied up that we've taken the risk out. So some of that piece as well. I also go back to what the person was talking about when they asked me, why do we tier sports? Or like hockey, why do we tier it? And I said, well, I'm thinking that you've got a different answer, but it's so that like skilled players will be playing against each other. And they said, yep, that's not right. And they said, because you can put a whole group of kids on a shinny pond and they'll play all afternoon with all different levels and they'll have fun. They won't worry about the score. They might have a dust up or two and solve it. But he said the real reason why we tier players is for parents, so they can sew 1A, 2As, or 3As on their coats. Less to do about the kids. But that being said, I think that play has disappeared a little bit. Yes. But I think that it does come back to us as coaches in our practice plans, that we also have to value it in the practice and understanding that they can learn from it. Like Tom Malloy is a master at it with small area games and that. And I know Mike has shared about a gentleman that they basically outlawed small area games in warm up because that's all that coach did. And he was very successful with it. And it's that whole piece of embracing the play and supporting kids. It was last night in one of my practices, we started with some heavy compete. And I blew it down and brought the kids in and said, why is there laughing? Why is there smiling while you're doing this? And they saw the concerned look on my face and they thought they were in trouble. I'm like, exactly. I said, compete is supposed to be fun. Is it frustrating and going to piss you off from time to time? Yes, but it's supposed to be fun. That's the core of our game, is you have to compete. If you don't compete, this game is not going to be very good at all. So I don't know whether I answered you, Wally. I'm just rambling all over the place today.
That's good rambling. Peter.
Yeah, actually, Jordan, I've got a question for you. A couple points I want to make, and then I got a question. So when I used to be involved in prep school, and I would go to different events that were held, there was always very often the parent and player kind of panel where they could ask questions. And one of the things that I noticed was up until about age 12, the kids were extremely engaged in asking questions about prep school, what it was like living away from home, the hockey, all that. As soon as they became 8th graders, they would look to the left, look to the right, and look behind them to see if anybody else had a hand up before they would go. So it was so interesting to me that there was that real dividing line between those two ages of when it was okay to still be free and open, if you will, and ask anything you want to ask, versus when it became, I got to worry about being cool. Also, I've got a 7-year-old grandson now, and my favorite, I mean, I know when I ask him how was your day? What was your favorite class? I know like most kids, it's probably going to be recess, which is great. And I asked him what they do at recess, and they're pretty creative. So he said, well, we played Jack in the Box. I'm like, all right, what's that? He said, well, one kid has a ball, and then there's 4 or 5 other kids, are about 20 feet apart, and you throw the ball. If you catch the ball, you get to come up and be the Jack in the Box to throw it to the other kids. So I thought it was interesting that they had a name for the game that I think has absolutely zero relationship to what the actual game is. But those kids so they're creative in that. And I moved that up to like that 12-year-old that is still ready to be open and free. So what happens in that period where we lose sort of those golden moments where the kids are just being kids to all of a sudden what somebody else thinks matters more than what they think?
That's a real interesting one, Peter. And grade 8 is an interesting age in itself. When I was first starting as an educator, a mentor teacher said to me, he said that there's nothing farther from human than a grade 8 girl. And it is so true. But they do become humans quicker than the grade 8 boys do after that. But what I don't know the full answer to it, but I do know what you're talking about in the whole piece of judgment. And we as adults, I think, struggle with it too. Always concerned about, well, how will this look rather than what it actually is? Are we doing what's best? And so the kids piece, that judgment piece comes in, and especially in group settings where they might not know people. But it's one of those pieces that we find is really interesting. And so that's the other piece, going back to the rewiring, is what that author is talking about with the book, The Anxious Generation, is talking about how, of course, everything that they're doing online is all about appearances, and it's not about reality. Because like I'm fully admit that I'm not a subscriber to social media. And it isn't just because I got gray hair and the kids will call me a boomer. But it's because the time that I know that it takes, and I know that I probably get sucked into it just the same way as they do. And you go on Instagram or any of those types of platforms, and people are showing you their best pictures of everything. Right? They're not showing you the crap that's going on in the day. They're not showing you about dragging themselves out of bed to get to work, or what it looks like to be frustrated with several things, unless they're doing the opposite and putting out hater videos. But it's one of those pieces that we're all being judged continually. And now you're not just being judged by those who have direct sight line on you. You're being judged by those around the world. And so that's one of the pieces why Peter is probably getting even worse, why people won't stand up and ask questions. And that I have it where I'll have more parents now, and in my career, this is my 21st year as a school administrator, and I have far more parents now that send me email and I'll try and phone them back, and they won't answer the phone. That they'll just send me another email, and it's like, well, what could be resolved in a 2 to 3 minute phone conversation is going to be 30 or 40 emails, which are going to take way much more time than that. So it's like it's just the way things are going, and it's scary. So it's some parts. So you will see, and Wally can attest to this probably, is that finding people that are willing to coach, finding people that are willing to step up into professions where you're going to be serving the public, it's going to get harder and harder, I think.
You use the word serving, Jordan, and I think that all of us are sort of in, dedicating our lives to the game and making it better. And I think it is serving, and that gives you a perspective when you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. I think you can have a peace of mind, and I know I am spending time on media, Instagram, Facebook, but the thing that I found most effective for real, immediate communication is texting. And I know there are people that I text that give me an immediate response, which I like. And I'm quite surprised because everybody's busy in their own ways in their own worlds. But when you text, you're talking to somebody that you would converse with, but you may not get their attention trying to answer the phone or read the email and respond to the email. So I've had pretty good success with testing. And for all of you, I need to learn how to text PDFs. And Tom Malloy has done some texting of PDFs. In fact, Tom is at the Calgary Flames practice right now. I told him to join us on the phone. He sent me one of the drills that he's observing as we talk at the Flames practice. But it is amazing the potential of communications that are available and ways of communicating that are available in today's world. I guess if you really care about society as a whole, I'm just concerned about what's real, what are facts, and how can you make judgment and filter the information that might be fake news, might not be fake news, in terms of looking at making a real concrete decision. And I don't know about you, Mike, and Peter, but you're living in the States and you got an election coming up, and it's all media now.
Well, yeah, it is. And I think to Jordan's point that what's scary to me is the fact that what we're doing right now, this real archaic thing called talking, is becoming obsolete. Even when I was coaching at university, and I would ask a player, hey, maybe something simple as, Johnny doesn't look like who he was. He was okay at practice today, and I know you're a good friend of his. Do you know what's going on? Yeah, I talked to him, and so I would say, okay, did you talk to him? Well, yeah, we texted. And the fact that they don't even understand that that's not talking. There's no tone in a text. There's no eye contact in a text. There's no maybe that little bit of a pause when you're talking with someone, or a sigh or whatever it may be. There are little signs that something is actually going on. To me, that's what's really, really scary, is that we now have a generation that thinks texting is the same as actually speaking.
I had a conversation with a 16-year-old girl trying out for the midget AA team. She's a pretty good student and a pretty good player. And I asked her about cell phones and not being able to use them in her school. And she said, it's been amazing. Kids are talking to each other now. They're conversing. And she likes it. So
this brand new thing called speaking. It's incredible.
Yeah, they're having conversations. They're actually communicating with one another, and you can see and sense their feelings, their emotions, verbal and eye contact. It's just something is so critical, And but Jordan, you've got a ban at the discretion of the staff at the school, and I'm not sure what the rules are and whether all schools have discretionary bans or just the whole 9 yards, no cell phones, like you take them away from the kids when they come into the dressing room and you give them back when they're done the game kind of thing. But this is a case where a 16-year-old student is quite happy that that's occurred. She mentioned an app that I've never heard of, which is all they communicated on. Like,
Yeah, well, the so for some of the students, yeah, it's when it has occurred, it takes the choice out then for them. So then they're okay with it because that piece. When it comes to with the team and that, we allow them to have their phones at times, but there are times where we ask for them to be away just because we want the players to be present with one another. And it is almost impossible to be fully present to each other when you have them around. So, and now with smart technology and smart watches and that, you'll be having a conversation and then all of a sudden somebody be looking at their wrist and you may as well stop the conversation because you know that you're now number two in that conversation to whatever's going on their wrist. So that piece, but it's something that we're working with. And yes, I do agree that there's more communication tools out there than ever, but they have to be used correctly. It's one of those pieces we just have to, just like everything else, have to teach them.